All right, everyone. So today we're gonna do a deck profile for Union Arena's Yellow Bleach deck. And so this one is gonna be based around Bach as the main raid target. And we'll just go ahead and jump right into it, starting with the 0 energy requirements. So it's gonna be for Bach. He's the main raid target for the deck. And so I'm gonna run as many copies of him in different forms, starting off with 4 of the 0 energy requirements. And then for Asnot, so I do use Raid Asnot to close out games because it does have impact, but I only run 4 base targets for it. So with these, I try to keep at least 1 in hand and 1 on field, if not at minimum 1 on field, like in the back row, ready to close out the game. And then for Bernice, so if you look at Bernice's effect, which is to go ahead and rest him to gain an additional yellow energy, and then he sidelines himself after the main phase. It looks like it's meant to support Raid Bach, but really I use it to get out Bazby as early as possible in the game. This, however, can be used for a bunch of different things, and it's one of those things that once you get at least 1 or 2 on the field in early game, the other 2 are very easy ditch targets for discarding or anything like that. All right, so we have no 1 energy requirement cards. I did want to run Lloyd, but I just couldn't find space for him. So then we'll do our 2 energy requirements, which is going to be Bambietta. She is essentially going to be set up for spot removal, resting things that are smaller that my opponent may use to block. So she's really good for closing out game or for stopping my opponent from using a small body to block against Bazby. I also do run some Raid Bambis, so this is my only target for that as well. And as a honorary 2 energy requirement is going to be Jerome. So Jerome is actually a 3 energy requirement, but because the meta right now is green Bleach, purple Bleach, green Hunter, this is essentially a 2 energy requirement. So it's really good at getting your 2 cost energy, your 2 energy generators on field as fast as possible. It's probably one of my favorite cards right now in the deck. Next up is Robert. A lot of times that I use him, I don't get his effect, so he is essentially a vanilla 2 energy generator for me. Late game, if I've ever felt the need that I need to use an action in order to draw a card, I'd much rather have Robert in my hand because he just provides a body and it becomes more energy efficient. And then the 3 requirement Bach. So he's also a 2 energy generator. He is the color trigger for the deck. And as far as color triggers in yellow go, I much more prefer Asnot, the 3 requirement for that. But I had to choose between the 2, and right now I'm using Bach. The effect doesn't really make a huge difference in the gameplay. There's maybe 1 or 2 situations where it did, and other than that, I rarely find myself saying, you know what, I'm glad I used that effect. But he is a target because he has the 2 energy generator. Whenever it's my opponent's turn, I'm very much likely to have 6 energy on field. So if they hit the raid Bach, I'm able to go into him. So that's why I play 4 of these instead of splitting, for example, 2 and 2 of Asnot and Bach. For my 4 energy requirements, it's going to be my raid cards. This will be first Raid Asnot. This is mainly for closing out games. He will rest smaller bodies, but impact is kind of the most important thing. Aside from any 5k bodies, he's essentially there to, you want to go into him if your opponent has 1 or 2 life left and start swinging with that impact. That's why I try to keep 4 in the deck. I was trying to balance between 3 and 4, but I want to see as many copies of this in my hand ready to go as possible. I did make a huge mistake, which I'll tell you about in just a bit. But then we're going to go on to the other raid card, which is Raid Bambietta. She is not a primary focus of the deck, even though she is really good. She's more spot removal, and I'll show you some plays that I do with her. For the 5 energy requirements is Baz B. I run 3 of these things because I want to see them on field as early as possible. Preferably, I'm going second, and in my second turn, I have one of these already put in my back row, so in turn 3, I can push it up and start swinging for 2 damage. But this right here is actually where a lot of mistakes can be made. So in a game that I could have potentially won, I discarded an Asnaut because I already had one in hand, and it ended up later in that game that I needed it to close out game. So if you already are getting this on the field and you have a couple of 2 energy generators already on the field, well then Bernice is a good discard target. What else here? Robert's a good discard target, and so is Jerome. But yeah, this is you discard a card and then you get damage 2, or if he attacks and wins a battle, you draw a card. So he essentially replaces a card you lost in your hand. Really good early aggression, forces your opponent to either take that damage or get rid of some of their bodies in order to block this, or even use their raid abilities really early to get rid of him. And then I played 3 raid Yuhabak. So I was debating between 4 of this and 3 raid Asnaut, or 4 raid Asnaut and 3 of this. I ended up going 3 of this just because Asnaut is needed to close out games, whereas this is used mainly to clear bodies that I normally couldn't clear. And the ability of his to gain the damage 2 and extra 1000 BP doesn't come up too often. I think maybe it's come up once in the entire time that I've used this card, but he is still good. It is something for your opponent to think about, and it determines how they block. So a lot of this deck is just really trying to trip your opponent up, make them misplay, and that's how you get the good wins out of this. All right, so that's all the characters. Now for the events. So I played 3 the jail. This is amazing for closing out games as well, just resting bodies that could stop you from hitting life. And also I use this with Bambi Raid in order to get rid of a body that I probably didn't have enough BP to get over, like for example Raid Kurapika. Quincy Volsternditch. So this is the general card that comes in every deck to restand 2 action points. It's really easy to misplay with this and use it when you don't have significant plays to make. So it's very important in this deck to hold on to it, especially if you know that you can survive the next turn. And then finally, Metalize. So Metalize is the special trigger of the deck. It's choose one of your opponent's front line, and choose one character in your opponent's front line and sideline it. And so the alternative is the Fear, which stuns one of your opponent's characters and gives you a draw 1. Overall, this is probably better right now, but in the long run, as far as cards go, the Fear is probably better and will be better in the future. But this isn't a bad card at all. Even though it requires 5 to be on field, the deck itself is pretty aggressive at generating energy, so you'll find yourself at 5 very easily. But that is the deck list, and then I'm going to go into a couple of plays that I do. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you 3 plays that I like to do with this deck. This is going to be an opener, a closer, and a kind of mid-game board wipe play. So we'll start with the opener first. And so for this combo, you're going to need at least by name Basby and Bernice, and then any 2 yellow energy generator, and then just any 0 cost, something that you can get played on the field. If you are in a pinch, you can even use I lied. No, you definitely need the 0 cost. You can't use a Bambi. So how this works is if you're going second, you want to get this Bazz out on the field by your second turn. So that way in turn 3, you can just get him up and swing. And so it's a pretty simple combo. You're going to start off with 2 actions if you're going second. So you just play Bernice and then your other 0 cost. In your next turn, you'll have another 2 actions to deal with. So you will use Bernice's ability to give yourself an additional yellow energy, bringing yourself up to 3. And then you'll play your another 2 energy generators. So I'm using this Yuhabak as an example. He'll get his ability as well. Look at the top of your opponent's deck. Hopefully it's something that makes a difference. And then now that we have 5, we're gonna use our second energy to play Bazz. And so that's the end of your second turn. At the start of your third turn, you can push him up and start swinging for 2 damage with his effect. So that is really early aggression that forces your opponent to either take that damage or start blocking, getting rid of some of their bodies that they have on field just so they don't take so much damage early on. And then another thing that I do, especially if we get that Bazz out early in the game, is what your opponent will do is they will actually try and use their smaller bodies in order to block his attack. And they are minimizing the amount of damage that they're taking, but they're using characters that are insignificant to them. If you absolutely just want to get that attack in, I use Bambietta to rest one of their characters, the smaller ones, so that way Bazz is guaranteed to get a clear hit. Sometimes you do want to actually take out their smaller bodies. You just want to get rid of as much stuff on their field as possible. So this isn't something that I always do, but if I feel confident in taking that extra damage to my opponent, then that is an interaction that I like to do as well. And then a game closer is using these 3 in some way, shape, or form. This is also a quick body removal as well. So use Bambi to rest one of their smaller bodies if they have it, and then use the gel to rest one of their bigger bodies. This is important if, for example, you are in a situation where you're actually not going to close out game, or if you know that your opponent, for example, you could run into a raid in their life. And so you'll just essentially use the gel to get rid of something that could be problematic, like a raid target. Then you'll go over this Bambi with the raid Bambi and go ahead and get rid of whatever it is that you just rested with the gel, or if it's important, whatever you rested with this Bambietta. And that's the use of 3 actions your turn. Hopefully you have some bodies on the field and you're able to close out game. When closing out game, I usually try to keep, again, an As-Not in hand, and then 1 in the back row as an energy generator. And hopefully I either already have them or I'm drawing into the other As-Nots. These have impact, which help close out the game. And so this is a total of 3 energy usage right here, but could potentially just be 1 if you don't need those other 2. And then we're able to go into As-Not for 1 energy or 1 action, and then he potentially can stun something as well. I say stun, but really I just mean rest something for that turn. And then he swings with impact. So he's great for closing out games as well. And he is probably the key piece to closing out the game with the Bambi combo, just kind of making it a lot easier if you're already set up to do that. All right, and then the last is the board wipe with extra damage. So for this, these are essentially the cards you'll need. The kind of important piece is 6 energy on the field, including Bernice, Yuhabak, and any 2 energy generator, and then of course your raid Yuhabak in hand, ready to go. So let's say we got these 3. As a matter of fact, let's say we got those 2 and Robert's in hand, and your opponent has a pretty big field. This is going to be the board wipe for them. You know what else we're missing? We're missing Metalize. So first thing we'll do is we'll play the Bernice. I'm sorry, we'll play the Robert. Maybe you get a free draw off of that. If you don't, it's not important unless you have to draw into one of these pieces. Then you're going to go ahead and use Bernice to generate that additional yellow energy. And now you're going to use Metalize to get rid of one of your opponent's bodies, whether it be one of their raid pieces that's problematic or anything like that. Now, I would use this on something that I know this Yuhabak can't deal with easier. So I would use this on, for example, Kurapika that is not rated. It has 4K. And I would use this on Kurapika that is rated. But this will go ahead and get rid of anything with 5K or less battle points. And so that's the first card used in order to meet his ability requirement. And then we'll go ahead and go into Yuhabak. We'll raid into him. His ability activates to either trash the top card of a rated character, or delete or sideline something. Once you exit the main phase and enter the battle phase, then Bernice will sideline himself, and now you've met the requirement for his 1,000 battle point increase and for him to have damage too. So you have successfully gotten rid of 2 bodies on board. Now you have damage too. And what this is going to do is your opponent will now have to choose to either take that damage or block with one of their characters, which probably will not survive that attack. So nothing on their turn can really get over it. So this is another way to get rid of some of their bodies, put them further behind, or inflict big damage. But yeah, those are just 3 kind of standard plays that I do myself, kind of my go-tos, but there's definitely plenty of other plays as well. The key to a deck like this that isn't as meta relevant is to outplay your opponent and make them make mistakes and then take advantage of that. Otherwise, every game is an uphill battle. The deck is just not amazing in itself. And the other variant of this deck that focuses on resting and stunning your opponent's cards, because of the raid mechanic, it isn't amazing in this game, even though I love it. And that is all. Thank you for watching.